Let's go to YouTube. Hope you're all having a wonderful day. We've got an interesting topic to discuss that's been kind of thrown around a little bit, but we provided some different stats to support it. If you guys don't know what I'm talking about, there has been a lot of conversation around the top 4 going to the major, and a lot of people kind of suspecting, well, like, hey, you know, you've got 2 teams in here like Space Station, M80, Dignitas, TSM, all tied at that kind of 5th place spot just outside. But because of peaking, OG was able to make it through. They did. And the RLCS point structure has been into question because of YMC trying to snipe the #1 spot over Limitless and everything else, which got me to believe and start thinking about with spreadsheets of what those kind of complications are. If we take a look specifically at the placements here, things make a lot of sense over in Europe. You've got a team that hasn't lost. You've got a team that's been to the grand finals multiple times. Vitality was able to do it at least once. Like, all these teams have proven that, hey, we are consistent within the top 4 placements, therefore we are the ones going. And while it did come down to the wire, and there's plenty of tiebreaker scenarios, you know, Magnifico and Vitality came in at the same point. Oxygen was within throwing range, but they needed some help. And then you saw Moist, where if they had a heroic miracle run, you know, they win, they go the entire distance, the right teams win or lose. It shows that the system is working, in my opinion, as intended. Swiss is providing the results, and the format is providing the results of, while yes, you can have a glaring mistake. Moist didn't even make top 16 once. As long as they make up those in other ways, they will still be in contention or have the ability to push their ticket in. You know, we talk about the depth. We talk about all the different ranges of, I guess, results a team can have. But for the most part, the teams that are finding themselves in consistent conversation towards the top are relevant when it comes to the final regional or qualifier to make it in. But we just need to weight wins higher and all that kind of stuff. So I started thinking through my spreadsheet, what if we only took placement into account? What would the system look like? What would the teams look like if we did what I am calling an APS system, which is average placement system, which is we only take into consideration how well you play over the course of all these matches. So if we take a look at that, we're going to start with North America, and then we're going to look at Europe and provide some solutions with it. With all of these teams, I have it tracking all of the matches that they will play this season. You've got regionals 1, 2, 3. You've got major 1, regionals 4, 5, 6. I'll probably change that to say qualifier, so Q instead of R. And then it averages out those placements. For North America, this is what we have. Okay. The way that we're doing this is if you take first place, you get 1 point, or you get 1 placement point, which is how it displays. If you take second place, you get 2. If you're 3 to 4 range, we take the average. A 3 plus 4 in between is 3.5. 5 to 8 is 6.5. So on and so forth, to where then we find our average of where they're at. And these are the results that we have. Okay. Hypothetically, what would have to happen is M80 and SSG, based upon consistently making the top 8 every single time, have an average of 6.5. So to see who would go to the major with these 3 would play a best of 7 tiebreaker, and that's what would determine. And the outlier is OG, where it is giving reward to the teams that are performing the best. If you make a top 4 or a top 2, it heavily rewards that. Case in point, LG having the heads up over. OG is an outlier, but they've proven that with the peak and the consistent back-to-back top 4s that they are worthy of making it, and the point system rewards that. It is heavily weighted to the teams towards the top, which I agree. You have 2 teams that the handicap for them is that they weren't able to beat the teams above them. One in particular just couldn't beat Genji. That's the real conversation. That's what this whole conversation has been predicated on. Is Space Station, are they the 4th best team in North America? Let me know if you guys think that's the case down below. But Space Station, through their own volition, was not able to beat or close out series. There was times where LG also going to the 3-2 round, I think every time, but was able to win in the quarterfinals, which is what pushes them forward. If Space Station does that even once, we see a different story. Case in point, if I take Space Station and put a 3.5 here, they're now at 5.5 and they bump themselves ahead. That's the difference. Making top 4 one time is enough to change the narrative of where these teams actually placed. So yeah, if you don't make top 4 ever, despite the competition in front of you, and there's ways to manipulate that, you know, if I end up winning my matches, if I close out my series earlier, etc., it moves forward. But That also gives you advantages into your quarterfinal match. And while, yes, I do agree that Rocket League is an any given Sunday kind of situation, like I personally believe, and you guys have seen me say this numerous times in my predictions, if you get into the quarterfinal, it's a coin flip. Any given Sunday, you have the ability to separate yourself. But those matches in a best of 7, the best team should win 9 out of 10 times. But there is always that outlier of upset potential. And 3 chances, they weren't able to do it. I think, you know what? With OG making it, OG proved that they has the higher peak. They were able to get into it multiple times. Yeah, they're being rewarded for it. That's why they're going to the major over these teams. Now, do I think, based upon eye test, based on what I'm seeing, JNaps really put on his backpack, the knapsack, and did a lot of really good things for that team to move forward, and the rest followed in pursuit. But if I'm telling you right now in a head-to-head, if I take these teams, I probably put M80 in 6, and then SSG and OG in my personal rankings are somewhere in here, and they've got to play a lot more, and I've got to get more exposure to it, because LG's strength of schedule, like they definitely had some easier matches in those quarterfinals. It is what it is. But based upon the way this levels out, like, I think it tells a pretty good story of where teams are ranked. TSM has proven that they have peaks, but they've also made big mistakes. Boulevard has only made 1 regional, so they're on the outside. Same thing with Incorrect. Like, there was some pretty interesting results. You saw Deleted make top 16 twice with a chance to go past the 1-3 round, and then they would throw matches. And then one time they didn't even qualify. So the average placement, I think, really tells a good idea of where the team are. I think it punishes them a lot harder for a bad placement, but it also shows like they have shown potential to get to that, and that's why it averages out. That's how numbers work. It is purely objective in those results. So I think, yeah, if you take a step back and you look at the way these teams are playing, and I go, okay, the teams that are going to be fighting for the top spots, you know, you're in that 2-2 round in Swiss, you're either going to go 2-3 and you're eliminated, or you're going to go 3-2 and you're going to move forward. All those teams are in this area. We've seen OG do it numerous times. Pirates on a Boat has gone 3-2 multiple times, and then they get into the quarterfinals and lose. Dignitas has had their ebbs and flows. TSM, same thing. Energy has popped into top 8, but then struggled otherwise, especially with all the roster changes. Omelette showed peaks, but for the most part, they've been on the outside. And then Shopify, heavy peak, but then they've failed to impress. You know, at one point, both them and Energy went 0-3. So while, yes, we've seen the potential is there to get to top 8, consistently, they're a little bit below the midway point, which I think makes sense. I think it makes a lot of sense. When we go and look at EU, it's pretty straightforward. EU lines up perfectly with their seeding. When it comes to rank placements, when it comes to how everything is played out, EU is on the money. They are 100% like, hey, this is the seeds going into the major, and it's identical. Despite all the EU depth, despite the inconsistencies and the sloppiness at times, like EU, I think lines up pretty dang well. You know, you've got teams like Belagol who have made two top 8s versus Top Cougars that have made, I think, 1. Top Cougars had a decent result, but overall, Belagol's been the more consistent team. Endpoint has peaked and showed a lot of potential, but they've fallen short. Magnifico was tied for vitality with a chance to go to the major. They ran into K-Corp because they lost to Moist. That upset is the difference between them being in this conversation and not. And I think further doubles down on why I like the concept, because I am a firm believer that, like, you have to win the matches in front of you. You can't leave things up to chance. Like, it is competition, the whole finite type mentality. You have 3 qualifiers to do your job. And if you have a bad qualifier, you have 2 more to make it up. And if you don't, that's the harsh reality of competition. Better luck next split. And if you can't make it up in split 2 and into the second major, then do I believe you should be at the World Championship? No, I don't think that these teams should get a bunch of extra lives and double, triple, quadruple elimination in tournaments. I think there needs to be a finality. And that's maybe me coming as a NFL fan, and I like the playoff system. You get 17 games to make or break, and then you get into the playoffs and it's all or nothing. And that's what provides the entertainment and everything else. So finding ways to pair that and match that with some competitive integrity with top 8 automatics and everything else, I do like the way this is played out. I think all these teams, based upon the results, and it makes sense that it should, because we're averaging their results, reflects roughly the power ranking in my brain that I kind of want to associate them to. I can't put Endpoint over Belagol because Belagol has provided that they have their peaks and they get super close, while Endpoint has had really big crashes. Four-wheel drive is in that same mentality. Moist, while yes, they did it once, can I really confidently put Moist up there when they've only done it one time? Sometimes they don't even make regionals, you know, to the top 16. The difference, though, is while these, I think, are outliers, I think Suz result, the upset that they played in the crazy result, to me was an anomaly. Top Cougars, I could see them doing a little bit better. Maybe you shift them up or down a little bit, but it also helps me remove the bias of OGs and longstanding names. That is objective results for Top Cougars. If I remove the bias towards Gregan and Relating Wave and the guys, maybe this is the way that I do my power rankings. Maybe this is how from here on out, the way that I base my feelings on how teams are playing. Because to me, it is straightforward. It is, this is how you performed. These are the results. And while, yes, I can say, you know what, right now, I think Oxygen is going to perform better than Magnifico. Based upon what I've seen, based upon eye test, based upon my job as an analyst, I think Oxygen's a little bit above. I still think it is going to allow me to be at least within striking range of like, okay, these teams I think are in a place where I'm like, you know what, depending on how the day goes, I could see Redemption beating Magnifico. I'm going to lean Magnifico, but I could see Redemption doing it. And based upon how I feel on the day, based upon how they've performed on the weekend, I think it gives you a pretty good idea of who's going to win or not. But we'll see how it goes. I think right now we only have 3 as a sample size, right? 3 as the sample size is going to be interesting. I may not take the majors into account because they're only playing against other international competition. And I'll probably remove those from the regional rankings because it's how I have them done now. But let me know what you guys think down below. Do you guys want me to do something different with these? I think it's kind of an interesting look on these. Let me know. Let me know in the comments down below. But with that said, I hope you enjoy the content. Like, subscribe, turn on notifications, and maybe more additions to the spreadsheet in the future. Peace.